welcome to Inspire Indeed on WRIR LP 97.3 FM, Richmond Independent Radio, radio for the rest of us. My name is Elaine Summerfield, and I'm your host for Inspire Indeed, where we're learning about community issues and the nonprofits and community leaders that are working to address them. Our hope is that you'll learn something new about our community and be inspired to think about how you might make a difference with your deeds. Today we're going to be talking to a nonprofit that provides a really important service for the community, but is probably somewhat invisible to you unless you happen to be a home builder. KC McGurren is the Executive Director of EarthCraft Virginia, and she's going to share some information about how they contribute to the sustainability of our community through ensuring high-quality green buildings. Welcome, Casey.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's great that you were able to come join us. So why don't you share a little bit first about what EarthCraft Virginia is? What is it that you guys do?
Sure. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. We brought green building to the state really in a residential application. The program's called EarthCraft House has developed out of Atlanta from South Base Energy Institute in 1999. So actually one of the longest green building programs applicable for residential construction. What that means to us is it's a focus on energy efficiency, building materials, on-site practices to include reduced waste, to include optimal value engineering.
What is that? Well, I'm sorry, optimal value engineering, what's that?
Well, that's when we look at the building envelope and we try to maximize insulation and reduce lumber. So that's actually a win-win. It means we have less 2x4s or 2x6s to actually touch and more ability to insulate the building envelope. Wood is a really poor insulator, so the more opportunity we can actually use for insulating that wall space.
Okay, but you need the wood for support and stability, so it's finding that balance.
Right, and that's actually really what's interesting about the construction industry. Single-family builders have been challenged, I would say, with some of the advancements. With green building, there's so much to it. It's this holistic approach. You know, we primarily look at energy efficiency, but we're also looking at materials, and we're looking at durability and indoor air quality. So for a builder to approach this, it can be really scary. There's been a lot of new product advancements. We're seeing some of them not so new, like structurally insulated panels, oriented strand board, OSB, that's encapsulating foam board, and they actually come in large panels. They're erected on site. Mm-hmm. We also see insulated concrete forms. These are just some of the strategies stick frame builders typically don't have familiarity with working with.
So when you're talking about stick frame builders in the home builder industry, this is kind of what we imagine when we see like a barn raising with somebody putting up the wood frame.
Stick builders, wood frame. It's the typical, I would guess 95% of the market is going to be from a single family builder application. They're doing 2x4s and they have framers on site. What we're seeing is a lot of different products that advance sustainability and energy efficiency. The SIPS panels that I mentioned, insulated concrete forms, those are foam cores, and then they pour concrete down the middle. They stack up again. We're seeing continuous insulation. We love that. That means it's actually a continuous foam board that's applied to the exterior of the OSB. It's still a traditional stick frame building, but now we have a continuous insulator rather than stick frame, previously kind of where we were filling the ribs, we say, of the building envelope with insulation, but that 2x4 or 2x6 was still conducting heat loss. And so the role that we play is that we work with our builders. It's a voluntary building program. We require our buildings to be at least 15% more energy efficient than code, and we do pre-energy analysis to make sure our builders will get there. We see on average our buildings are 28% more energy efficient on single family.
So what are you actually doing with those builders?
Well, a lot of things. The first step for a builder to participate in our program, they come to a day-long builder training. We talk a lot about building science. Again, when we're talking about energy efficiency and durability, it's very largely based on building science. So we're talking about heat, air, and moisture and how that works and flows through a building envelope and through the building at large. Our builders go through the training. We then assign them a local technical advisor. We actually operate on a statewide basis for our program and throughout the Southeast with our other partners for the EarthCraft House family of programs. That local technical advisor works directly with the builder. And so that's another huge advantage of the builder, and for them to participate in the program. That individual, that technical advisor, provides the energy analysis using an energy model software. And then we go through a points-based worksheet, which encompasses all the parts that green building encompasses. So that's everywhere from site planning, the building envelope and energy, waste management, water conservation, indoor air quality, durability, and homeowner education.
Okay.
So we look at all those things, and we make a game plan. And so it's really important for us and the technical advisor to work with the builder and the HVAC individual and the insulating contractor to make sure we all understand that we're building this building in total, not piecemeal. Our technical advisor also reviews the load calculations for the HVAC. Because we're building tighter buildings, we need smaller systems. And it's important for a moisture management standpoint that we do right-size HVAC systems. The technical advisor will visit the site during construction. We actually go before drywall is installed. We want to look at mechanicals, not only that they're right-sized, but also that they're air-sealed. The duct work and duct sealing national averages have been quoted in 25% for new construction for duct leakage, and we require them to be less than 6%.
Okay.
So that's a huge factor when you talk about whole energy for the building. The technical advisor is checking this worksheet that we've all agreed upon, and it's points-based, very incentive-based. And then the technical advisor comes back at the end of the construction, and we actually do a pressure test on the building envelope. We have a big calibrated fan, and we measure how much volume of air is pulling in through the building envelope at a designated pressure difference. We're seeing some code changes across the country starting to incorporate these testing measures, and it'll be a couple of years, but I think Virginia eventually will be seeing that as well.
A change in the code for Virginia?
There's the 2012 building code for residential construction does encourage states to adopt that. Each state then has their own ability to take portions of that and adapt it to their needs. We are seeing builders already, all builders in our program, and every single home is pressure tested, both the building envelope and also the ductwork. And we also require them to pass these standards. Maryland is already working on the 2012 code. Georgia has already adopted the testing. And Virginia right now is trying to figure out what exactly will be implemented in the 2012 code, which is all very confusing because it likely won't be implemented until 2014.
So right now, what are the incentives for builders to get involved with this?
Well, I think it comes from a variety of places. I had previously come from a very environmental aspect of really wanting to do right and build better buildings. I think there's a fair amount of builders that do believe that. They are very interested in building high-performance housing. And I think because our program is voluntary, you do see those builders participating. There's also a market advantage for folks that are willingly taking that next step now rather than being pulled by the rest of the industry. They're recognized as leaders in their industry. We have builders even locally participating in our program that are designing and building net zero buildings. So that's a building that actually we reduce the amount of energy that the building needs, which is always the step one and often forgotten. But you first have to conserve the amount of energy. So that's focusing on that building envelope and very tight, very well insulated. And then we look at systems such as PV, solar, thermal, and other type of PV for hot water, and or geothermal combination thereof, to produce enough energy throughout the year that the building consumes. PV, photovoltaic, those are the solar panels. Long payback time, but again, if you're building a home and your focus is to do a net zero home, you first focus on all the outside elements, and then you focus on right-sizing your HVAC system. Then you focus on getting the high-performance hot water heater that you need. All these measures combined will first reduce the amount of energy you need, and then once you have that number, kilowatt hours for a total year, you can then figure out how many PV panels, solar thermal, a different way to heat your water, and geothermal, which is an HVAC opportunity to offset your needed heating and cooling from the ground's temperature. It's a lot of building science, which is a portion of it that I absolutely love. And I think from a builder perspective, that's something that the builders also attune to. They don't see this as just a green building program. I think green has unintentionally gotten some bad reputation. I think a lot of products and folks are greenwashing. So it's really important to us that we do verify these buildings through that pressure testing. And then we go back to that energy model. So we have really real-life data on the energy component. We also are looking at measures to control indoor air quality. So we're looking at bringing fresh air into the building. We can try to control the substances that we're putting into our buildings.
Okay. Yeah, that is something that I've heard with some of the newer construction, that they're so tight that there are other issues that come with that. Like you mentioned, the moisture control and mold and mildew that can happen when a building's too tight.
So our philosophy there is if you build tight, you ventilate right. So that's actually having fresh air, not only fresh air that's just dumped into the building, but we actually want to introduce and incorporate it at a controlled measure per hour, controlled cubic feet per minute per hour into the HVAC system. And then so it's heated, cooled, and filtered, and then redistributed into the building envelope. So there's the right way and there's a wrong way, like most things. And so that's really what we're about. We try to handhold the builder through this process, because when you change one thing, you affect something else in the building.
Now, you're talking about new construction. Do you work at all with remodels or renovations?
On our single-family side, it's predominantly new construction. We do have a renovation program. All the Fort Belvoir homes, there were 522 homes that were renovated up there. We typically, on our renovation, we incur such a huge, we require a 30% improvement on energy efficiency. The average homeowner that comes to us is looking to redo their kitchen or their bathroom, and we typically cannot capture 30% energy savings from previous.
From just one room.
From just one room. So there is an opportunity. It takes a serious gut renovation. We do have a multifamily program that has been very, very successful and has gained national attention from Global Green and most of the affordable housing folks that are looking at what's going on. We are largely tied with Virginia Housing Development Authority and their low-income housing tax credit program. So all the low-income housing projects in Virginia since 2008 that have been funded have actually gone with EarthCraft. There is both an option for green building for LEED and for EarthCraft. We've been working with VHDA and those developers since 2006, and it's been really terrific. We see about 2/3, 66% of those buildings are renovations. And because the economies of scale are working there and we do require that 30% savings, we're really transforming the way that we approach that process. It's been terrific. We require the 30%. Right now, a lot of the developers that are aiming to get tax credits, it's become competitive, so they're really aiming to do 50% improvement on pre-existing standards.
It's competitive because there aren't enough tax credits to go around, so they need to compete for them?
Yes.
Oh, I see. Okay.
In March, all of our developers apply for the Qualified Allocation Plan through Virginia Housing Development Authority for those tax credits. And VHDA's interest, I believe, is that they want to see better buildings. They want to ensure that the investment from these tax credits are best utilized and that we're going to have sustainable housing.
Yeah, well, it's fascinating to think about how it's not only helping the builders, it's helping the landlords and those that are managing those buildings, and then the tenants and the homeowners. They're the ones that are benefiting in the end.
It really is amazing. And when you show somebody how to do it right, it's really exciting to be a part of that process. And it really reminds me of that triple E that I learned in college, the triple bottom line. So environment, equity, equality rather, and economics. So we're really able to, with this kind of new generation of green building, it touches all of